call the June 15th meeting of the Noblesville Common Council to order at 7 o'clock. You all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Aaron Smith.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Lees, could you call the roll?
Mr. Ayer,
Present.
Mr. Boyce,
Present.
Mr. Davis,
Present.
Mr. Hampton,
Here.
Mr. O'Connor,
Present.
Mr. Schwartz,
Present.
Mr. Smith,
Present.
Ms. Wiles,
Present.
Mr. Peterson.
Here. Could I have a motion to approve the meetings of our May 25th meeting?
Minutes. The minutes.
Yes.
Minutes?
Minutes of the meeting.
Yeah, what'd I say?
So move. Second. Don't start.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. I didn't count. 9-0. Can I have approval of the executive session memorandum from June 4th?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the executive session memorandum of June 4th. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 8 to 1 abstention. Vote no, or is
I wasn't there.
Okay, 1 abstention. Can I have a...
Mr. President?
Yeah, thank you.
I would move that we amend agenda item to read as, this is on miscellaneous number 6. It should read, Council to consider resolution RC-29-21, a resolution approving an economic development agreement by and among the City and Curium US LLC.
There's a motion to amend the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to amend the agenda. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0.
Mr. President, I would move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
There's a motion to approve the amendment as amended, and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0. Petitions by citizens who are present. I did not receive any cards, but if anybody would like to fill out a card in the back, they're welcome to, and bring it to the clerk. Seeing no one coming forward. Council committee reports. We'll start with the Parks Board. Mr. Schwartz.
Yes, we met June 4th. It was a really quick meeting. A lot of positive things. A lot of the programs are getting a lot better turnout naturally. Now that things are getting better with the virus. One good thing is they're continuing to see record numbers with the golf course, which I thought that was great. And they did begin discussions on the bunker repair at the golf course as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schwartz? Seeing none. Roads Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The roads met June 4th. Greg O'Connor, Aaron Smith, myself were there. Talked a lot about street rehab. One thing that jumped out, the alleys. The asphalt is complete, and the concrete approaches have started this week for the alleys. 146th Street lighting. It's moving forward in 2021, and the schedule is still pending. At the corporate campus, Oleo Road, north of 141st Street and through the intersection of 146th Street, the work continues, looking for on-schedule reopening on July 1st. But about the same time, 146th Street west of Oleo will close after July 1st to complete the project. Also, Kerrigan Road, drumroll, Mr. Boyce, Kerrigan Road Bridge over Morse Lake is now open. Pleasant Street, geotech work started on June 7th. The appraisals for phase 1 are ongoing, and several city officials will meet with the Indiana State Historic Preservation Review Board. That meeting is set for July 14th. That's still on schedule, Mr. Mayor? Still on schedule for July 14th. And downtown streetscape design is ongoing, including the sewer separation and design scoping also underway with design. And that's a little bit happened at the Roads Committee.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hampton? I appreciate you mentioning streetlights in
Of
your
course.
report. Thank you.
Those are important.
146th Street. Finance Committee, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Hampton, Greg O'Connor, Megan Wiles, and myself met on June 10th. Patty Johnson from the Street Department discussed additional appropriations for the road salt that will roll into next year that her department will be using. Mr. Howard discussed a couple bond authorizations that he'll be talking about this evening, one for Pleasant Street and one for Federal Hill parking garage. Mr. Haberman discussed economic development agreement for Syrian U.S. LLC. Ms. Smith talked a couple of different economic development agreements with Applied Intelligence Corporation and Patch Development. And the claims do come to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Any questions for Mr. Davis? Can I have a motion to approve the claims?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the claims. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 9-0. On to previous discussed ordinances. Council to consider ordinance 410521, an ordinance authorizing the city of Noblesville, Indiana to issue its taxable economic development revenue bond series 2021 Old Town Project and approving and are authorizing other actions in respect thereto. Mr. Howard.
At your last meeting, we introduced this ordinance. This is one of two ordinances that you have on your agenda this evening concerning the Old Town development. This particular ordinance is the final approval of issuance of your economic development bonds in the amount of $5.6 million. The development agreement talked about 5.2. Been talking to Mr. Treat. You know how these bankers are. They may want to have discount or premium or something else. So, but the proceeds would not exceed the 5.2. These proceeds will come from a developer-backed bond, which will be placed, guaranteed, etc., by the developer, Old Town Development Corporation. They're non-recourse bonds. If you, in the print, they will never be considered an obligation, nor will the county be expected to make any payments on the bonds other than the Redevelopment Commission's pledge of tax increment from both Phase 1, which is going to be on the east side of Nixon Street, and Phase 2 on the west side of Nixon Street. Again, this is before you for final approval. The project, the financing of the two ordinances we have this evening are on schedule. We're anticipated to close in late July and move forward. With that, that's a brief summary. I will stop and answer any questions that the council may have concerning this ordinance.
Any questions for Mr. Howard?
And we did go to finance and received approval.
Matter of public hearing. So we'll open up the public hearing for 410521.
Mr. President,
Connor.
seeing no one from the public coming forward, I move to close the public hearing for ordinance 45-05-21.
41-05.
0521.
Second.
There's a motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 410521 and a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Could I have a-
President, I would move we approve ordinance number 41-05-21 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion to approve ordinance 410521 and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Mr. Air?
Aye.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Hampton?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Wiles?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
9 ayes, 0 nay. The ordinance is adopted.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, council to consider ordinance 430621, an ordinance vacating right-of-way. Mr. Haberman.
Good
Wait,
evening.
Motion to
Ordinance.
introduce.
Yep, thank you.
okay. You guys fight it out. There's a motion to enter, okay, I don't have to read that. Wow.
Good evening.
Go for it.
You good? All right.
So, are you okay
Good.
with going for it?
This is regarding
Sorry.
previously agreed upon, approved economic development agreement with East Bank or East River Partners LLC for a mixed-use development on Connor Street and the White River. You'll recall that this is this will have 219 residential units, about 5,300 square feet of office retail use, and then it'll have a private garage included. You see here, the intention tonight is to adopt the ordinance vacating right-of-way that you see located here on the west and south boundaries of the McMillan property, in between the county parking lot there. So this will be one of the steps, the next steps in closing on that property. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Haberman? Matter of public hearing, so I'll open up the public hearing for 430621.
President, seeing no one come forward, I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 430621 and a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0. Thank you. Back in 2 weeks. Council to consider ordinance 440621, an ordinance of the City of Noblesville, Indiana, authorizing the issuance of its taxable economic development lease rental bond, Series 2021 Federal Hill, and approving and authorizing other actions in respect thereto. Mr. Howard.
Motion to introduce.
Second.
This ordinance is, again, part of the Federal Hill project. If you recall, in the development agreement, there were two financings that the city agreed to engage in for this project. The first being the developer-backed bond that you just approved. The second is approving a lease rental bond for construction of the parking garage. That parking garage is going to be, as we've talked about before, internal to phase one of the developer's agreement, located in the northwest corner of Nixon and Logan Street. The bonds will be lease rental bonds, so they would not count toward the constitutional debt limit. The nominal issuer will be the Community Development Corporation, and the Redevelopment Commission would be the conduit for payment of the lease rental bonds. If in fact those there was excess from the developer bond that we just talked about in any 1 year, those funds could apply to this, but essentially this will be a property tax-based bond with, under the ordinance, an annual debt service not to exceed $700,000. Again, it's for introduction, and it'll be for you at the next meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Howard?
Okay.
Council to consider ordinance 450621, an ordinance approving additional appropriations in the Motor Vehicle Highway Fund and establishing a public hearing.
Move to introduce.
Thank you, council members, Sam Barris, OFA staff. As mentioned, this is an additional appropriation of a little under $500,000 for the street department for road salt. That said, the important thing to understand here is there's actually no fiscal impact at all associated with this action. We're not getting more road salt. We're not paying more for road salt as a result of this action. Instead, this really represents a budget purchase cycle timing issue that's a little bit convoluted, but by way of explanation, what's been happening is this year, for example, our street department, back in the spring, a couple months ago, entered into an agreement to purchase road salt for next year. So they'll be paying for the road salt next year, but they've actually already entered into that purchase agreement. Historically, what's happened has been they've then come to the council in the fall to ask for budget authority to cover that purchase that they've already entered into. So from a kind of financial management best practices standpoint, we're basically doing things in the wrong order. We're agreeing to pay somebody before they actually have it in their budget. So what this does, adds it to their budget right now so that we can encumber that money in the accounting system, lock it down for that purpose. And then in the fall, when they come with their budget requests, what they'll be asking for is budget authority to enter into the agreement they're going to enter into next spring. So basically, we're getting ahead of this cycle instead of being constantly behind. So again, no fiscal impact, but it's going to have the appearance of increasing our budget 1 year this year. And then you will hopefully not ever have to hear about it again. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Barris?
And again, this is a two-parter, so.
Miscellaneous number 1, council to consider resolution RC 2321, a resolution of the Noblesville Common Council.
The appropriation. Mr. President, I would move that we establish a public hearing for 45-06-21 at our next meeting.
Second.
There's a motion to establish a public hearing for ordinance 450621 and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. No? Okay. Council to consider resolution RC 2321, a resolution of the Noblesville Common Council approving the issuance of bonds and notes. Mr. Howard.
This resolution concerns what we call a bond anticipation note to fund preliminary costs of Phase 1 of the Pleasant Street project, which generally will run from 11th Street to River Road. The permanent financing, to understand the story, the permanent financing for that project will be a lease financing between a redevelopment commission and a redevelopment authority, and will be funded by property taxes, excise tax, excess TIF, wherever we can find it, any way we can to fund those permanent bonds. And the estimate is those bonds would be in the amount of approximately $56 million. This resolution authorizes the issuance of short-term borrowing, what we call bond anticipation notes, for a period not to exceed 3 years. Those notes, because of the short-term nature of the borrowing, would be at a substantially lower interest rate than the long-term 20 to 22-year lease bonds. And it is required because to enter into the final lease rental payments, you must have bids. You must be able to show the bond purchaser that you will be able to make lease payments and that the project defined in the lease will be substantially complete and available to use before you make the lease bonds. And that certificate has to be signed as part of the long-term lease. So you have to get a lot of things in place before you bid. This bond anticipation note funds those things, such as additional design, land acquisition, part of the utility relocation, and essentially makes it ready so when we bid this project, which is scheduled for September of next year, those costs will be incurred. When we get to the lease, the first funds from the permanent bonds will go to repay this bond anticipation note from the long-term lease rental bonds, which are anticipated not to exceed $56 million. I work with bond counsel and financial advisors I don't make this complicated intentionally. Our friends down at the General Assembly do plenty of that for all of us. And I will stop now and answer any questions that you might have. And again, this went before Finance and received a positive recommendation.
Any questions for Mr. Howard?
President, Mr. Howard, just to clarify, the ban or bond anticipation notes won't exceed 18,585, correct?
18,585, because we are using this would count to our constitutional debt limit because we have to pledge a general obligation bond behind this so the people in the band know that they can get paid. And obviously, we don't have that much unencumbered cash sitting around in the checking account. So this basically makes that authorization for the long-term financing.
Any other questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. O'Connor?
I would move that we approve Resolution RC-23-21 as presented.
Second?
There's a motion to approve Resolution RC 2321 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council to consider Resolution RC 2421, a resolution approving an economic development incentive agreement with Applied Intelligence Corporation. Amy Smith.
Good evening. Before you is a resolution for an economic development agreement with Effing Properties, which is the parent company to Applied Intelligence Corporation. AIC is an electrical engineering service provider dedicated to automation. They manufacture industrial control panels and help engineers with the laying out of the panel, selecting the components, building it, and completing the testing. They will be moving their corporate headquarters to Noblesville by building a 12,000 square foot office and production facility at the northwest corner of Pleasant Street and Union Chapel. You can see that in your overhead. The estimated capital investment of this project is $1.3 million. AIC will retain 10 employees and hire an additional 3 full-time employees. The economic development agreement requires community engagement, involvement, support, and that would be with volunteer time, financial contribution, and an overview of the items that they've completed will be submitted along with their annual tax abatement compliance forms. Additionally, included in the development agreement is a tax abatement fee. It's an annual fee of 5% of the annual tax savings for the duration of the abatement. Funds will be deposited for general use with the Noblesville Redevelopment Commission. You may remember this project from 2018. Mr. Effing came before you for a resolution for the tax abatement. He encountered some problems with drainage at the site and just recently was able to get those resolved and ready to move forward. However, the resolution that was approved, the revitalization area designation terminated before he was able to get those permits filed. So we're back before you, and I'll talk about the abatement next. And this has come with a favorable recommendation from Finance.
Any questions? Petitioners here, if you have any other questions. Mr. O'Connor has a question.
Amy, if you go down to the 6th whereas clause, I think there's a scrivener's error there, but tell me if I'm wrong. At least the version I'm looking at. It's under the year of deduction.
Are you looking, are you at 2521 or 2421?
I may be looking at the wrong thing here. Disregard, I think I'm looking at the wrong one.
Great.
I am.
Oh, there is an error in that one.
My
I
apologies.
Mr. President, I did have one question for Mr. Ripping.
Good evening.
Oh.
Sure. Gabe Effing, 9520 East 206th Street, Noblesville, Indiana.
Thank you for being here tonight. We talked about this a couple of years ago when this was first here, about 3 employees the 12,000 square feet. Are you anticipating that 3 becomes 5 or becomes 8, or how's that growth?
Yeah, that's a conservative number, so I like to aim low and overshoot, so I think that should be a pretty easy number to achieve, so.
Growth, this will allow even more growth, that's, I guess.
Yeah, well, we've been attempting to hire in our market now in Indianapolis without much luck, so I'm kind of hoping too, when we moved up to Noblesville, we'll have a little bit more luck in obtaining some talent, so. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Questions?
Mr. President?
Yeah, Mr. O'Connor.
I would move that we approve RC-24-21 as presented.
Second.
There is a motion to approve our resolution RC 2421 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those 8 to 0 to 1. Council to consider resolution RC, this is an 801. Council to consider resolution RC 2521, a preliminary resolution establishing an economic revitalization area. Amy Smith.
Good evening. Yes, so this resolution before you is to establish an economic revitalization area and request a public hearing. And included also in this resolution is a 3-year tax abatement. It's the same abatement that Mr. Effing received back in 2018. This does come to you with a favorable recommendation from Finance, and during that meeting, they did ask for renderings, and I do have some for you. So that would be fronting on Pleasant Street. And then there's the back of the building. This one is looking at the building heading southwest.
Yes, the backside.
The back side of the building. So that Connor would be back here.
Amy, is that upper, the vertical slats, is that steel or what material is that? Do
I'm
you,
going to have to defer to Mr. Effing.
okay. Steel insulated? Hmm.
Any other questions?
President.
Mr. O'Connor.
Amy, that whereas clause, what should that say? Because if we approve it, I'd
Yes.
just soon change it and make it
Yes, my
so you
apologies on
can
that.
change the original.
Yes, it should say Effing Properties.
Files it
Like
statement,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Yes.
that's fine.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Mr. President,
Mr. O'Connor.
I'd move to approve RC 25-21.
Need to amend it first.
Oh, I'll amend it. I was getting around to that, but that's okay. Mr. President, I'd like to amend RC-25-21, changing the 6 whereas clause to read, whereas effing properties files its statement of benefits, real property, form is attached as Exhibit B, in the remaining as presented.
Second?
A motion to amend RC 2521 and a second. This is a hand vote. All those in favor of amending, please raise your right hand.
Mr. President.
Wait, let's hang on a second.
Question.
Let's do that again. Motion to amend it. Okay, so
Do it
it's
again.
8 to 0 to 1.
801.
I'm going to abstain. Okay, so we amended it. So go again?
Mr. President.
Yes?
I'll move to approve RC-25-21 as amended.
Second?
There's a motion to approve RC 2521 as amended. And a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 8 to 0 to 1. All abstain. And I would like to,
Mr.
yes, thank you.
President, I would move that we establish a public hearing for the economic revitalization area 2 weeks.
There's a motion to establish a public hearing for and economic revitalization area in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 8 to 0 to 1. All abstain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council to consider Resolution RC 2621, a resolution approving an economic development incentive agreement with Patch WBP Lot 1 LLC. Amy Smith.
Hello again. I do want to, here's a layout of the property. I do want to point out this Cumberland Road is actually North Point, so that's my fault again. So I apologize for that. It's this, Cumberland is right here. So earlier this year, council approved an economic development agreement with Patch Development for the development and infrastructure of Washington Business Park. This resolution approves an economic development area with Patch Development, Patch WB Lot 1, for the construction of a 162,000 square foot industrial building with anticipated capital investment of $15 million. As part of this project, we're excited to welcome the Morel Group to Noblesville, as they have entered into a lease agreement with Patch for 24,000 square feet of this building. Morel Group serves the world with highly engineered solutions, premier components, and complete product and process life cycle support. Their markets serviced include aerospace, steel, automotive, CNC, machinery, just to name a few. They have 7 locations throughout the Midwest. They will employ not less than 33 full-time employees at the Noblesville location. This economic development agreement also provides for a 5-year real property tax abatement. It also has the tax abatement fees similar to the previous economic development agreement approved, and the requirement to be engaged with the community. It does come to you with a favorable recommendation from Finance Committee. And Tim Wilson, the Morel Group Branch Manager for Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois, is here this evening, as well as Andrew Greenwood, Patch Development General Counsel and Vice President of Development, if you have any questions for them.
Any questions?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
One, can't have our esteemed guest come and not say something. You have to give us your name and address.
Yeah, good evening, Council. Andrew Greenwood, Patch Development, 400 Alpha Drive, Westfield, Indiana. With me is Tim from Morel Group.
Good evening. My name's Tim Wilson. I'm a resident of Noblesville. I live on Harewood Drive North, behind the, do you need the address? 10233 Harewood Drive North, Noblesville. And I'm the branch manager for Morel. I joined Morel back in 1996 in Michigan and have been with Morel. This is now my second tour of duty with Morel. And I moved here to Indiana for the branch manager. Morel is an engineering house and distributor. We have a small select number of vendors that we distribute products for, and we engineer solutions for machine builders and for automation, anything that's moving, anything that would make perhaps the water bottles sitting in front of you. We help those machines. Anything in motion, we help to make it move better. We employ engineers as salespeople. We employ degreed people for customer service. We do engineering in our facility, and we're looking at the prospects of moving production from our headquarters, which is in Auburn Hills, Michigan, here to our Noblesville location. We're very excited about the enlargement of our engineering staff, as well as the enlargement of our manufacturing staff here in this facility. I was a little late tonight, thanks to the traffic, which is why we're happy about moving up here to Noblesville. We're currently in Marion County. We're just a little south of 96th Street, right next to the Expressway 69. So we're very excited about coming here, and as soon as they can get the building up, we're going to move in. Any questions, please?
Yeah, I'm just curious, can you tell me some of the vendors that you work with? I'm just curious.
Yes, we were started in 1976 as a company, so we've been in business that long. We're about 100 million in revenue in all of our offices. Normally, a distributor of our size, 100 million, you would expect them to deal with 20 to maybe even 45 vendors. We do 80% of our business with 7 companies, and 5 of them are divisions of the same company. We are the exclusive Bosch Rexroth distributor for all of the technologies that they offer, whether it be hydraulics or electric servos for robots and automated machines, whether it's linear bearings and mechanical systems, tightening tools that you would find in an automotive facility, tightening lug nuts onto tires. We handle their conveyor systems. We handle pneumatics. We're a SICK products distributor. But we do most of our business in just seven companies or 7 divisions. So it's a very limited number. And rather exclusive. And as such, we make sure that we are engineering partners with them. And we do our business hand in hand with them rather than just the customer vendor relationship. Thank you. Other questions?
I had one quick question. On the, one of the recent additions to our economic development agreements is the community involvement component. It's a little unusual that we're doing an agreement with the landlord, but I wanted to make sure that Morel is comfortable with that community involvement piece of the development.
What I can say about that is that I was asked by the owners. We're privately held. There's 2 owners. They were both employees. They started out as employees 20 years ago, and they moved up. They are only the 2nd group of owners in the company's history. One of the owners asked me to step in today. I'm a Noblesville resident, and they asked me to step in, and they are comfortable with the arrangement that we have. I don't know the details, but I know they're comfortable.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilson, when we met back in February, I enjoyed meeting you and your team, and we talked all about the great things of Noblesville, from our strong economy, great schools, strong infrastructure, and that was all fine and good. But can you tell the council what actually really sealed the deal? What did I give you that sealed the deal for the Morel Group to come here to Noblesville?
It was the cookie.
From Rosie's. Mr. Wilson emailed me the next day after his wife had one bite of that Rosie's cookie and needed to know where to get that from. Even our best efforts sometimes boil down to baked goods.
And you'll be happy to know that we have furthered the commerce of Noblesville by the purchase of more said cookies.
Yes. I have furthered my waistline with that as well.
Yes.
So, thank you for being here.
No problem. Thank you. Nope.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Entertain motion on this item.
President, I would move we approve Resolution RC-26-21.
There's a motion to approve RC 2621 and a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0.
Noblesville.
Welcome to Noblesville. Council to consider Resolution RC 2721, a preliminary resolution establishing an economic revitalization area. Amy Smith.
This resolution before you is for the 2 parcels shown here. It's the Field and McNally parcels. It would set the economic revitalization designation for the whole park so that in the future, any tax abatements, we wouldn't have to redesignate those specific areas. We would just come before you for the abatement. This does come with a favorable recommendation from Finance as well. And as discussed a little earlier, this is our 5-year real property abatement. And if you'd like to see some renderings, I have those as well.
Any questions?
Mr. President, I would move that we approve Resolution RC-27-21 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion to approve RC 2721 and a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0.
President, I would move that we establish a public hearing for the economic revitalization to be heard in 2 weeks.
Second.
Motion and a second to establish a public hearing for an economic revitalization area. This is a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council to consider Resolution RC 2921, a resolution approving an economic development agreement by and among the city and Curium USA LLC. Mr. Haberman.
Good evening again. I'm here to discuss the economic development agreement with the city and Curium Pharma. They plan to expand their manufacturing operations of radiopharmaceuticals, therapeutic radiopharmaceuticals, as you can see here on Bergen Ave Boulevard. They will maintain in their current footprint, and they plan to invest $3.5 million in real property and $9.3 million in personal property, and adding 34 high-wage jobs in the agreement. Current schedule for the tax abatement would be 7 years for personal property and 3 years for real property. We are also lucky to have Roy Brown here with us, an official from Curium. He could probably tell you a lot more about their operations and radiopharmaceuticals than I can, so so I'd like to welcome Roy Brown.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Roy Brown. I'm Vice President of Government Affairs and Strategic Alliances for Curium. My home address is 401 Parkwoods Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. Curium is a global radiopharmaceutical company. Radiopharmaceuticals are radioactive drugs that are used to diagnose and treat disease, a variety of diseases, including heart disease, cancer, bone maladies, brain maladies, different diseases. Curium is a global operation. We have manufacturing facilities in the Netherlands, in France, in St. Louis, and now here in Noblesville. In March of 2020, we bought the former Zevacor molecular site on Bergen Avenue that we're talking about here. Since the purchase of that site, the city has been great to work with. We've had a lot of success with that facility, with the employees there, with the well-trained employees, and we have a lot of new products we want to bring in, and basically it's a Noblesville site competing with the St. Louis site. The city has been great to work with, so we chose this particular product to bring it here. We're bringing in 2 new therapeutic radiopharmaceuticals. These will be used to treat cancer, 2 different types of cancer. This work will be done over the next couple of years. We expect to be on the market in around 2024 with these 2 new products. So we appreciate all the city's done. It's been a great place to work. We think there's a strong workforce here. So as Chuck said, we're planning on adding at least 34 employees at an average wage of $103,000 and investing a total of $12.8 million in real and personal property. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
See, he knows a lot more about radiopharmaceuticals.
Yeah, Mr. President, I said, the kind of schooling, I'm just interested in, when you say 30-some jobs with an average of 103,000, and you say this area is where, is it a university structure around us? What is the pool that you see that you go?
Sure. Currently, what we have at the facility is a high-energy cyclotron. That's where we actually make the radioactive material that's attached to the pharmaceutical. So we'll take an enriched target, a non-radioactive target material, strike it with protons, and actually make it radioactive. And then we sell that radioactive product to other drug manufacturers for the particular product we make in Noblesville now to make what's called a nuclear generator that's used to diagnose heart disease. So they will inject this with the patient, and it will look at coronary artery disease and tell a physician what the extent of that coronary artery disease is. The new products we're bringing in, so the staff we have now include engineers, cyclotron operators, quality assurance, quality control people, human resources, environmental health and safety people, as well as quite a few cyclotron operators. The 2 new projects will be therapeutic radiopharmaceuticals, so that's actually producing the finished radiopharmaceutical here in Noblesville. So we'll bring the radioactive material into the site. mix it with the pharmaceutical, package it up in unit doses, and then ship it out using FedEx, who of course is here in Indianapolis. So the new jobs will involve a little different sort of people. These are more manufacturing people. These are people, radiochemists, R&D folks, people that are used to working with radiopharmaceuticals and pharmaceuticals, but then quality assurance and quality control, environmental people like that as well.
Do you foresee relocation from people who currently work in Missouri?
We don't anticipate people from transferring from St. Louis to Noblesville. We've hired the staff we have now from Noblesville. They all live in Indiana, and most of them live in Noblesville. We think there's a pretty good talent pool already, and we're looking at potentially working with some of the universities around here to train some of these guys as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. President, I had a couple questions. Roy, do you do more diagnostic than therapeutic? What kind of product mix does the company have?
That's a great question. Right now, the radiopharmaceutical industry globally is about 90% diagnostic and about 10% therapeutic. There's a major shift going on right now to get more therapeutic products. There have been a couple of therapeutic products approved by the FDA in the U.S., a couple of them approved in Europe. We hope these two new therapeutic products we're bringing in will be a couple new ones coming along. So there will be a shift over the next couple of years to treat cancer, to treat heart disease, treat things like Alzheimer's disease.
Mm-hmm. That might mean that you might need to expand more out at Bergen Boulevard at some future date.
That's right. One of the benefits of our facility in Noblesville is we have about 30,000 square feet of under roof space with heavy floor loading, so we can bring the equipment in, the production equipment we need, and place it on the floor that already has sufficient floor loading. So with these two projects and a couple others we have in mind, we're going to fill up that space pretty quickly, so it's very possible that we could need more space as well.
Terrific. This is a growing market. I think the compound annual growth rate's about 5%, and that's not going to slow down.
That's right. That's right.
Good industry.
Thank you. Any other questions?
President, I would move that we approve Resolution RC-29-21 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion to approve RC 2921 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 9-0. Passes. Council to consider Resolution RC 2821, a resolution to opt out of opioids settlement pursuant to Indiana Code 46152. Lindsay Bennett.
Thank you, Council. Lindsay Bennett, City Attorney. I'm here tonight on a resolution asking Council to opt out pursuant to a new act that was passed this session. I wanted to just briefly explain kind of what the situation is. So as I'm sure you're aware, we are in litigation right now with several defendants, and they call them the opioid lawsuits. Coming into this job, I learned quite a bit on who the defendants actually are and what we're suing for, so I'll just give you just a very high-level overview. So right now, we are in litigation with these defendants. There are manufacturers, what they call the big three distributors, and a few pharmacies. The litigation timeline looks like this. So in all of Indiana, there's 77 local governments who have sued these same defendants, and these suits started back in November of 2017. Predominantly were filed in 2017 to 2018. In January of 2018, we actually filed our lawsuit. And in November of 2018, the Indiana AG filed against Purdue Pharmacy. In May of 2019, they filed against Sackler Family. And in October of 2019, they filed against the big three being these here. So I mentioned that because this new lawsuit, this new legislation basically opts everybody, all local governments, into a settlement, whether they have filed a lawsuit or not. The legislation also gives the ability for local governments who have their own separate lawsuits to opt out of this legislation. Well, settlement sounds pretty good, right? So why would we ever want to opt out? Well, there's a couple of reasons, mainly because, as I pointed out, we have sued several defendants. The state has sued only 5 defendants, 4 of which we also have a suit against. So our settlement will be limited to the big 3 distributors and the Purdue Pharma that the state has sued. So that would limit our ability to settle with any of the other defendants that we have also sued. And so we want to make sure that we keep those options open for like settlements with Johnson & Johnson or CVS, with Walgreens, should any of those present themselves. So if we stayed in, if we decided not to opt out, there is a statutory split of funds. The state would get 85%, we would get 15%. And again, that would be limited to those big 3 distributors and the Purdue Pharma, and we would not be able to settle with the other defendants that we have. So here we're limiting our settlements, and then we're also limiting our recovery to 15% of whatever is negotiated through that. And it's paid over 18 years. Another big reason why we are asking council to approve us to opt out are because we would then be responsible for our attorney's fees and our costs and expenses. And the legislation does say that they have set aside a specific fund for some attorney fees, but it's unclear as to what's in there, if it will be sufficient to pay all the attorneys. So we would like to exercise the option to opt out now. We do have the ability to opt back in before September if for some reason something changes and we change our mind and we want to be in that settlement group. But right now, because we want to keep our settlement options open, we want to get as much money as we can out of those settlements, and we want to make sure that the attorney fees are paid out of that settlement money. My recommendation is to opt out. And so this resolution is something that is required by the legislation that council would need to adopt, and we would have Ms. Lee certify that and send it to the Attorney General saying Noblesville would like to opt out of the settlement group and would like to pursue our own settlements with the defendants that we have. Happy to answer any questions.
Local municipalities in the state of Indiana have decided to opt out already, that you're aware of?
I don't have an actual number, but several have. We are represented locally by Cohen and Malad, and they have told me that most of their clients have opted out, and so far Indianapolis has opted out, and some of the other counties. It is still kind of early. We haven't hit that June 30th date, and I think they had recommended, if we were going to opt out, to do it as close to that June 30th date as possible. But our next meeting is the 29th, and that was just a little too close for comfort to get everything signed and certified into the AG's office. So I wanted to bring it today.
One other quick question that wasn't mentioned, the money, if we stay in, what is the value of the lawsuit at best?
So this is unprecedented, really. I don't know of any other case where so many local governments have come together and sued so many defendants for this type of lawsuit. So what the judge actually asked was for each defendant to put together, they called it a fact sheet, and it's kind of a class of damage. So we don't have an actual number to our damages. I think they're trying to get an idea of what those classes of damages are. Are they, first responders, Narcan? Are they, treatment programs? Are they training for first responders? So there's different classes, and then we put together back in 2018, 2019, what those classes are.
Questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Connor.
I move we approve Resolution RC 28-21 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion to approve RC 2821 in a second. There's a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
Thank you, Council.
Council comments.
Mr. President?
Smiles.
I will just remind everyone that this Saturday is the St. Michael's Episcopal Church Strawberry Festival, back again on the square for the 43rd Annual Strawberry Festival. So between 11 and 5, come down and get your shortcakes, and hopefully we don't sell out too soon.
Thank you. I also had an opportunity to attend the Hamilton County Leadership Lunch today, and we had 3 members of our city government that were awarded Impact Awards. Mr. Mayor Jensen, Sarah Reed, and Vice President Wiles all received awards today. It was a big honor, so congratulations.
Congratulations.
Any other comments? Adjourn.